I'm Tomlyn Nicholson. This is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. President Trump wrapped up his Davos trip by announcing a landmark deal with Switzerland to relocate major crypto exchanges to the United States, calling it the biggest financial win since the gold standard. European regulators are scrambling to respond while Wall Street futures jumped 3% on the news. The House passed a sweeping bill capping credit card interest rates at 10% after President Trump personally lobbied GOP holdouts, sending the measure to the Senate where Majority Leader Thune promises quick action. Consumer groups hail it as a long overdue relief, but banking executives warn it could shrink available credit lines. An Indiana judge and his wife were shot in their home in a broad daylight attack, with the judge breaking silence to say he's improving as a massive manhunt for the suspect continues with multiple potential leads. Federal agents recovered another $112 million in misspent SNAP funds from Minnesota operations, pushing the total haul past $400 million in the ongoing fraud crackdown. Governor Walz called the figures exaggerated, while DOJ officials say the investigation is expanding into neighboring states. A Texas police officer was gunned down by a wanted fugitive during a violent arrest attempt, underscoring risks faced by law enforcement in apprehending dangerous individuals. Iran's supreme leader declared martial law in Tehran after protesters torch government buildings and continue renaming streets after President Trump, with death toll estimates now exceeding 700 according to exile groups. The White House issued a statement saying America stands with the Iranian people seeking freedom. Federal officials report that anti-ICE agitators targeted dogs in a Minneapolis kennel incident, describing the actions as an attack on law enforcement resources following disruptions at immigration facilities. A bipartisan Senate resolution condemning the Greenland tariff threats passed 68-32, with 14 Republicans joining Democrats to urge President Trump to pursue diplomacy over economic pressure. The White House dismissed the vote as non-binding, but acknowledged the growing transatlantic strain. President Trump signed an executive order directing the Pentagon to accelerate Golden Dome missile defense construction, with Greenland cooperation as a top priority, citing Russian and Chinese Arctic activities. Denmark reiterated its sovereignty stance while NATO allies quietly push for de-escalation. The DOJ unsealed indictments against 47 individuals tied to a nationwide welfare fraud network, with prosecutors saying the Minnesota cases were only the beginning. Several elected officials in multiple states are now under scrutiny for alleged oversight failures. President Trump met privately with Ukrainian President Zelensky in Davos and emerged saying a ceasefire framework is closer than ever, though he warned Kiev it must include territorial concessions. European leaders expressed cautious optimism, while Russian state media called the talks meaningless. The Federal Reserve held emergency consultations after President Trump publicly questioned Chairman Powell's loyalty following a DOJ subpoena over interest rate testimony. Markets dipped briefly before recovering on assurances the central bank remains independent. A coalition of 22 Republican governors sent a letter to Congress demanding immediate funding for border wall expansion, citing record fentanyl seizures and migrant encounters in January. Democrats countered that comprehensive reform is needed instead of symbolic barriers.